So we're into the month of November, and I did this last month, and I thought it would be a good idea to look into it, get a little more in depth with what's going on with teams, and get into who might be in trouble. And I'm also going to talk about coaches that I don't think are in any trouble with teams that are in slumps. So before people look at the board and go, I can't believe you've got this team on the board, don't worry about it. I'm not saying these coaches are in trouble. I just went through and said, all right, teams that have 2 or 3 wins in their last 10 games, I want to look at them. And I want to look at 2 other teams that have won 5 of their last 10, but those coaches could very well still be looking at potential for job loss at some point in the coming month. And I took some flack for it being too early when I talked about it a month ago. And yet what's weird is a lot of the same names are still up there. A lot of the same guys are still there. Peter DeBoer, though, is not. Peter DeBoer's got himself out of any kind of mess. I'm not talking about Jeff Blashill either, as I don't think Detroit's in any mood to make a change behind the bench. And, yeah, I mean, things are pretty stable there. And, of course, Todd McClellan was just hired by LA, and they haven't lost as many games in their last 10 as these, and I don't see their coach being in the same trouble as potentially Tampa and New Jersey. So let's go through this one team at a time, because that's how you do this. Ralph Krueger was hired May 15th of 2019. He's not in any kind of trouble. Absolutely not. He has at least a year and a half, I would think, to turn this around. But what's interesting is they're 2-6-2 in their last 10. They're currently 1 point back of a playoff spot, so they are nowhere near out of this. They can turn this around, absolutely. Their power play sits 11th in the league. Their penalty kill's 26th. You have to fix that penalty kill. VC and Middlestad stand out as guys who have 0 points in 10 games. There's a lack of scoring depth. You look at the fact that over their last 2 games, Eichel has 5 goals. Nobody else has any. So that kind of underscores that issue. You look for more from Skinner. You're looking for more in recent games from Olofsson. And, yeah, things are kind of falling off the rails for them altogether. And Dahlin with 3 assists in their last 10 games. Now, Dahlin will turn it around, but he was notably benched on the weekend. Hutton is 0-4-2 with an .876 save percentage over their last 10 games. Ullmark's 2-2 with a .917 save percentage. Been saying for a while, Linus Ullmark is the better goaltender with Buffalo, and I would think he's going to start getting the lion's share of games, but Krueger may see something that I don't that goes beyond the numbers, and maybe Hutton keeps it. I don't know. They were predicted for 6th in the Atlantic by the Hockey News Annual, so I went with the Hockey News Annual for predictions, just to give an idea of what we expected. These guys weren't expected to be a playoff team this year by most, and I would say they're probably still a little bit ahead of where they were expected to be at this time of year. They're number 19 in goals per game. They're number 12 in goals against per game. And in winning percentage, they're 15th overall. Winning percentage, I thought, is a good measure. Because we talk a lot about 500. There's only 6 teams in the entire National Hockey League that are below 500. This is where the 3-point game makes the standings kind of ridiculous. And this is why I see fans all the time. Our team's not struggling. We're not below 500. There's only 6 teams out of 31 that are below 500. If your team's at 500, they're probably struggling, and if you take those overtime losses and make them actual losses, the record looks a lot worse. But that's how the NHL wants it to look. They want winning percentages to look better than what they really are. So, Buffalo, I think you've got a stable situation with Krueger. Toronto. Everybody wants me to talk about Toronto. You can overtalk Toronto. Everybody overtalks Toronto. Mike Babcock was hired May 20th of 2015. And everybody's calling for his head right now. Everybody. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10, and they are 2 points out of the playoffs. And the problem is they've played more games than a lot of the teams they're chasing. Their power play's 21st. That's a problem. Their penalty kill's 25th. So whoever's in charge of special teams, that's a job that you might be looking at as well and saying maybe we need to make a change there. Andreas Johnsson, 3 goals, 2 assists in the last 10 games. The interesting thing with Johnsson is he seems to be taking penalties at the wrong times quite often and frustrated. Kapanen, 3 goals and an assist, very hot and cold. These 2 guys, during the offseason, they were throwing some money as restricted free agents, and I thought it was a little bit high. But the idea was, well, it's fine. It's what you pay for. Here's the thing, though. There are a lot of teams in the NHL that when you look at their bottom six, or even their everybody outside of their top three, they find deals. They're able to get guys to stick around for really good money. And when you look at Kapanen and you look at Janssen, and then when you look higher up and you look at Matthews, you look at Marner, all of these guys got more money than they probably would have with other teams. And when you're, even if it's just $500,000, let's say Kapanen's overpaid by $500,000, big deal. But if Janssen's overpaid by like $500,000, well, that's $1 million. That's a roster player. And then you look at Marner. Well, if they've got Marner down another $1 million, that's $2 million. That's a sizable upgrade potentially on the blue line with $2 million. So it all adds up. Mikheyev came in. He's got 2 assists in the last 10 games. He's cooled off. Tyson Barrie with 2 assists, and there's a lot of rumors about Barrie. And then trading Kadri to get Barrie, that affects their depth as well. So while I understand that there were people mad at Kadri for getting suspended against Boston, it's not like you're going to play Boston every year. I know it feels that way, but it's not going to happen. So for me, I understand the anger directed at Babcock. And when you look at the goaltending, Anderson's 3-2-2 over their last 10 with a .920 save percentage. Kaskisuo's only played the one game. He lost. He has an .842 save percentage from that game. People aren't going to throw the blame on him. I think there's blame to be thrown at Babcock. I also think there's blame to be thrown at how this team is put together. They were predicted to be second in the Atlantic. Right now they're 12th in goals per game. They're 23rd in goals against per game. And during the offseason, we all agreed they need to fix their defense. They haven't really done that. They are 24th in winning percentage in the NHL. And this is where that winning percentage comes in really handy. Because you can say, well, they're still at 500. Or they're still, they're still doing fine. No, they're 24th in winning percentage. They're not doing fine. And while it's still early, at some point, that's not an excuse anymore. We're over a quarter of the way through the season. They've got to figure this out. So Babcock, for me, yes, I understand the people calling for his removal. I do think there's enough evidence that you could argue he could go. There's also enough argument to be made that Dubas is the guy who's made this mess he's trying to clean up. I don't think that the team as it's constituted right now is exactly what Babcock's wanted, and I think that's been a battle back and forth between he and Dubas. So I think the argument can be made that Toronto's just dysfunctional right now. And this is why I'm not just doing a video on Toronto, because I would feel like I was beating up on them right now. I also had somebody asking about Calgary. I don't think Calgary's in any danger of changing coaches right now. Peters hasn't been there long enough. And really, in all honesty, I think it's a slump more than anything else. Now, Columbus, we're going to talk about Columbus, though. John Tortorella was hired October 21st of 2015. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10. They're 6 points out of the playoffs. I don't think Tortorella's in any danger whatsoever. But again, I wanted to look at teams that are slumping. Power plays, they're 25th overall in their power play percentage. Penalty kill, they're 21st. Wenberg stands out with 1 assist in their last 10 games. And at some point, if you're not producing, Tortorella's not going to be playing you in a prominent role. Korpisalo's 3-5-0 in their last 10 with an .891 save percentage. Merzlikins 0-0-2. Still looking for a victory. .923 save percentage. Merzlikins has been playing quite well. Outside of that, there's not really anybody I can look at with scoring and say has been slumping a whole lot over their last 10. Below expectation. But while they were expected to be 8th in the Metro, and this is really key, they weren't expected to be very good this year anyways. Their goals per game at 30th out of 31 teams. That's a bit of a surprise. I had expected at least 26th. Goals against per game, 21st. Well, with those combined numbers, you're not going anywhere. And their win percentage is 26th overall in the National Hockey League. So this is an issue for Columbus. And it's something that, again, I don't see Tortorella being in any danger right now. But is this a situation where at the end of the year, if they're out of the playoffs, does Tortorella end up moving on, or do they move on from him? That's when the real question comes up. I don't think there's any doubt that Columbus is in a bit of a reshuffle, retool kind of situation. I don't think Tortorella's going anywhere, though. It'll be his call, I think. Vancouver's interesting. The pressure from Vancouver fans is there. I don't really feel like they have to make the playoffs this year. I know the JT Miller trade means that either they trade this year's draft pick or next year's first rounder. It is protected, so if they miss the playoffs this year, then this is the 2021 draft pick. My statement has always been, well, if they don't make the playoffs in 2020 and if they struggle right through 2021, Benning's out of a job anyway, so that's why he makes that deal. And even though he's got the extension, I would think if the Canucks miss the playoffs this season and next season, he's gone. Travis Green was hired April 26, 2017. They're 3-4-3 in their last 10. They still sit in third in the Pacific, but there's teams behind them that have played less games, and there are teams behind them that are playing better. San Jose stands out as a team that right now is playing better than Vancouver overall. Power rankings, they're very close to one another. I would not be surprised if San Jose is ahead of them by the end of this week, but we'll see. Power play, well, that number's good for the Canucks. They're 6th. Penalty kill, that number's good as well. They're 9th. Over their last 10 games, Miller's kind of pushed back from where he started the season at an incredible rate. 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points in his last 10 games. That's right about where you can expect Miller to be. An average of, I would say, a points rate right now of about 50 or 55 the rest of the way. So he'll still end up with about 60, 65 points by the end of the year if he has that kind of a rate from here because he had so many points early in the season. Horvat, a goal and 5 assists. Really, really trying too hard right now. Horvat and Pettersson both. Although Pettersson's numbers have been good, I do think he can be better. Quinn Hughes, a goal and 6 assists. He had a very good game against Colorado at the end of it, but he's had his struggles as well, and you're going to see that with a kid. Markstrom's 1-3-2 with a .906 save percentage over their last 10. Demko's 2-1-1, but his save percentage .892. That save percentage dropped tremendously by that game against Colorado on Saturday night. So overall, Demko's been very good. It's just the game against Colorado, his numbers didn't come out very good on that one. They were expected to be 5th in the Pacific. So like I said, the expectation, and again, these are Hockey News predictions. I'm not going with my own. Hockey News predictions had them 5th in the Pacific, and that's right about where I think they could end up at the end of the year. I would not be surprised if they're close, they don't quite make the playoffs, and I don't think that would be the end of the world either. They're number 11 in goals per game. They're number 7 in goals against per game. Their winning percentage is 16th in the NHL. So the overall numbers tell you, well, their scoring. Their scoring's okay. It's almost top 10. Their goals against is top 10. Their power play and penalty kill are top 10. They should be able to pull their way out of this. I don't know. I don't know that the depth is going to work. I don't know what the amount of young talent that's in this lineup, if it's going to work over an 82-game schedule, and we'll see. But Travis Green, I don't think there's any danger for his job. Even if they miss the playoffs this year, I can't imagine Travis Green ending up out of a job. Vegas, Gerard Gallant's their only coach, hired April 13th, 2017, before their first season. They're 3-4-3 in their last 10. They are the number 2 wild card currently in the NHL. Their power play sits at 10th. Their penalty kill sits at 4th. Their special teams have been very good. Over their last 10, Stone has been struggling to put the puck in the net. 3 goals, 2 assists. But he got on the board last night against Calgary. Could be turning things around. Of course, last night against Calgary, they win 6-0. The thing is, they always beat Calgary, and it's usually a very one-sided game. Stastny, 2 goals. Theodore, 4 assists in their last 10 games. Fleury, 3-2-1 with an .899 save percentage over their last 10 games. Subban, 0-2-2 with an .892 save percentage over their last 10 games as well. I do think that Vegas needs to inject something into that lineup. I don't think there will be any change behind the bench. Nope. They were favored to be 2nd in the Pacific. Again, this is from the Hockey News Annual. A lot of people had them either winning the Cup or going to the Stanley Cup Final. Now, their goals per game is 16th. Their goals against per game is 15th. So the overall numbers tell you probably not going to be Stanley Cup finalists or champions this year. That being said, they're number 21 in winning percentage. Move this a little bit so you can block the TV. Number 21 in winning percentage. So that's not on pace for playoffs overall. However, currently they're the number 2 wild card. And again, it comes down to games in hand and all that other wonderful stuff. Vegas does need to change something. I'm hoping that last night's game doesn't just make everybody go, all right, everything's fine, forget it, it's fine. And that some of the underlying issues that go on here hopefully get resolved. But I know they waived Brandon Peary and sent him away, so maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Tampa. I'm going to talk a little bit about Tampa here too. John Cooper, who was hired March 25th of 2013, he's the longest tenured coach in the National Hockey League, which is impressive that he's been there that long, and it's also kind of depressing that the NHL doesn't have a coach that's been in their job for longer than 6.5 years. 5-4-1 is the record for Tampa over their last 10, but they're 4 points out of the playoffs. The one thing I had to put on the board, though, they have 3 games in hand on a team they're chasing, which would be Pittsburgh, the closest playoff team that they'd be chasing. So for Tampa, they haven't played as many games as other teams. They're playing well. Their actual winning percentage is 14th in the NHL. So if they continue to win at the rate they've been winning at, they should be a playoff team. See? And that really could be the key for them this year. Now, their power play is second in the National Hockey League. Their penalty kill is 22nd. That's not good enough. And we'll get into kind of why that is, potentially. Kucherov stands out with 6 goals and 12 assists so far. More was expected. I do expect Kucherov to go on a run. We've seen that with Patrick Kane in Chicago, where he's gone on quite the run lately to get his points totals back up. And I would expect that with Kucherov as well. He's too talented to suddenly drop to like 75, 80 points this year. Vasilevsky's 7-5 with a .901 save percentage this season. And McElhinney is 2-1-2 with a .906 save percentage this season. Vasilevsky's .901 save percentage, that's too low. And your number one penalty killer is usually your goaltender. So that may very well be part of the explanation for the penalty kill struggling for Tampa this year is goaltending. They're number 1 in goals per game, which should surprise no one. It's more impressive considering Kucherov hasn't been fantastic yet this season, and they're still number 1 in goals per game. They're number 25 in goals against per game. So that's really what they've got to nail down. Because you can win a Stanley Cup with middle-of-the-road defense. You can win a Stanley Cup with great defense and not great offense, but you can't win a Stanley Cup with really mediocre defense. You look at St. Louis last year, what they went through, a lot of what St. Louis did was because their defense was just that good. So that's something they're going to want to look at, and we'll see if they make some moves to fix some things there in Tampa, or they just say, no, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll just leave that. We'll be fine. It'll figure itself out. And then, they were expected to be first in the Atlantic. There were a lot of predictions that they'd win a Stanley Cup this year, which is why I looked at them and said, no, that's my new rule now. If a team is predicted by everybody to win a Stanley Cup, my answer is, well, I know they're not going to win it because that's usually the way that works. Whoever's the odds-on favorite usually won't win it. In a league where you have so much parity and you have, say, 10 teams that could potentially win a Stanley Cup in any given season now, I don't go with the favorites. Let's move to New Jersey as the last team on the board. John Hines has been the coach since June 2nd of 2015. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10. 6 points out of the playoffs. And as certain players get better, Jack Hughes being that big name that's getting better, there are certain things to worry about here. Taylor Hall has 2 goals. He's getting a lot of assists, but he's stuck on 2 goals. And he always leaves you wanting more as a goal scorer. PK Subban, 2 goals, 3 assists on the season. This is not over the last 10 games. This is on the season. And then one person gets cut today in Corey Schneider, who was 0-4-1 with an .852 save percentage. And there have been games where he's looked miserable. I think of the game against Tampa, where they lost 7-6 in overtime. And all I kept thinking was, if Schneider made a save there, if they got a save from Schneider there, and out of the 7 goals, let's just say only 2 of them were bad ones. So let's say that all of them were good, except 2. You save those 2, you win the game. So with Corey Schneider out, it is quite possible that this team starts winning more games and they turn things around if Louis Domingue gives them better than what they were getting from Schneider. They were favored to be 7th in the Metro, but while nobody expected them to be in a playoffs position, mostly nobody expected them to be in the playoffs this year, they were expected to be better. And I think PK Subban has stood out as a guy who's not producing. Goals per game, they're at 28th. And that's where Subban was supposed to push as well. He's supposed to push the offense from the blue line. Goals against per game, 26th. Winning percentage, they're 27th. So they have the lowest winning percentage on the board behind Columbus, shortly, kind of, sort of. And if we get into regulation wins and all that other stuff, and in some cases teams, I think Columbus and New Jersey have the same, I think they have the same record actually, just, winning percentages tied. I just went from the app. You guys get the idea. It's still mediocre. 24, 26, 27. These ones stand out. I don't know that John Hines is in any danger yet. Again, if New Jersey ends up having a season that sees them miss the playoffs, and if it's a disappointment to everybody, Hines may be out at the end of the year. I don't know that there's enough right now that you can look at with the Devils and argue John Hines should lose his job for it. A month ago, maybe. After that miserable start, sure. But again, they're 5-3-2 in their last 10. Things have looked kind of better, and I don't know that they would have an appetite for firing the coach. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support, and I will talk to you again soon.